After a week of car sightings, hotel stalking, and our fan base turning into a private detective agency, we've got our man. George Hirst has signed on a permanent. This is Blue Monday. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast covering all things Ipswich Town since 2015. My name is Mikey Penty-Smith, and joining me to discuss this exciting new arrival are Craig Fimbo and Joe Fairs. Good to see you both. And Craig, how happy were you to see a player we've enjoyed watching so much come through that door at last?
Yes, it's a bit of relief, I suppose. Obviously, very excited that the collective fan base lost their minds for 48 hours. I think, as you alluded to in your intro, stalking the poor fella from afar, whether it be in the car park at Portman Road or following along the back streets, country roads of Suffolk, or along the quayside in Ipswich. But yeah, it's just a great move. It's the signing that a lot of us would have liked to have happened. After what he did for us in the last 5 months of last season. Obviously, from an integration perspective, it's fantastic. He already knows the manager, he knows the players, he knows the fans. So it's not as if, having missed out on a pre-season trip this week, he's not going to suffer any downside of that, because he knows how we play and how we want to play, and as he fitted us like a glove for the tail end of last season. He scored some ridiculously important goals for us, as he alluded to in his interview that he did with the club. He's just happy to be back. It's nice to get a home for a 24-year-old on a 4-year deal, which is another tick in the box. And we heard whispers that if he was going to move anywhere this summer, it was only going to be to us. It was the one deal that he wanted to get done, which, if you take it at face value, again, that's just another tick in the box, a great plus for us. So yeah, on the face of it, we know what sort of player he is, but looking from afar, looking from the outside in, he's a 24-year-old English centre forward, 6'3", swift, can bully defenders. So on a 4-year deal, Joe can chat about the financial side of things, but it only looks like a deal which can only be a benefit to us on the pitch, and potentially off the pitch on a balance sheet as well.
Indeed. Joe Fairs, welcome to the podcast. What a lovely shirt you're wearing tonight. Melchester Rovers. Could George Hirst be our Roy of the Rovers? But first of all, can you just talk about the financial side of this deal? There was a lot of talk about what this fee might be, and it sounds like it's £1.5 million plus add-on. Sounds like quite a good deal for us, right?
Yeah, to be fair, that's the sort of price I was expecting. I know some people have seen what Sims had gone for, and talking up that sort of fee, is talking at the high end of it as opposed to the upfront part of it. But I think when he went to Blackburn last season, there was a £5 million buyout fee in there. But I guess that fee is in there if he goes to Blackburn and rips it up in the Championship. That's what he would have been worth, and Leicester wanting to protect themselves on that side. But ultimately, he didn't make any impact in the Championship, and that's the second loan spell he'd had in the Championship where he didn't make an impact. And then he came to Ipswich, and like he did at Portsmouth the year before, had made an impact in League One. So I can see why the fee was sort of down at that level, £1.5 million, rising to sort of potentially £2.5–3 million. But I think we all saw enough of him in a side playing Championship football for that back end of that season, that the level he lifted us to from where we were before he came into what he was after he went in. He looks like a player who maybe is a slow starter to spell at the club. It takes a little while to get himself going, but he certainly got himself going at Ipswich. And when you look at his probably best performances in an Ipswich shirt, you probably go to the games when he was away at Derby, where he scored the goal and led the line superbly there. And he was up against Erin Cashin, who's sort of one of the highly rated defenders in League One. He went to Bolton and probably really bullied that Ricardo Santos out of the game there, who again was seen as one of the best defenders in League One. A player that could stand up, and then most impressively away at Barnsley, when he sort of really did bully Mads Anderson out of the game there, who was a £2 million defender when he signed for Barnsley, who was in the League One Team of the Year, who was their captain, who has since signed for Luton in the Premier League, and he's like, these are the defenders that he was showing. He was sort of giving no change to as a striker. So I think we can see that he is a player that is going to excel for us in this system, in this league. And yeah, at 1.5 million for an English player, there's always a premium on those. That if he can come in and do what he did for us last season, score 15, 16 goals, do that again next year, he's probably a player that's going to be worth a hell of a lot of money. So it's a no-brainer really at that fee.
Could be an absolute snip, couldn't it? And he isn't just about the goals, is he, either? So a good all-round centre forward that we've signed. We're going to save the Q&A part of this, because this is a Q&A show, for later on in the show. It won't be right at the end. So please put a question mark at the end of any questions that you have, so I can easily pick them apart from just general discussion in the live chat. Craig, we're going to talk some more about Hirst then, from what we saw of him last year and what we can expect this year. He really grew into that role as the main striker after a slowish start. Do we hope that because he knows his new teammates, he knows how we play, that he won't have that slow start again at the start of next season?
Yeah, I think so. And also, without much success, he also does know the Championship, having been in and around it for a little while. But no, you're absolutely right, Mikey, in that, as I said at the start, he knows how we play. He knows the style. As you said, it's not all about goals. It's about occupying the defenders and letting the Broadheads and Chaplins of this world do their bit and score their goals. So it can be a selfless, quite tiring role at times. But then, as you say, he started quietly. But again, referencing his interview that he did, he himself said he became a better player over time, and you could see the improvement that he made, the improvement that Ladapo made over the course of the season. Once these coaches and the manager get their teeth into them, there's no reason not to expect a similar trajectory upwards this season. How steep that trajectory is remains to be seen. It's a leap in quality to some of the teams in the division, but as we say, he's a good age. He's a very, very good physicality, and we've seen already, albeit not being our player, but with 4 or 5 months under his belt with us, he did actually become a better player, and you can see that with your own eyes. So we've got no reason to expect that.
Yeah, can you see any reasons why he wouldn't take to the Championship this time with the players that he's got around him, Craig? Because for me, he sort of reminds me of maybe a more mobile Alan Lee, and he was a very serviceable centre forward in the Championship. I know it was a long time ago, but aside from that little bit of history, is there anything that points towards her struggling? Obviously, as you say, you point to the history. Well, he has got history of not doing particularly well in the Championship, but it was in different circumstances with different teams in different environments. From what we've all seen since McKenna's taken over is that all players have improved. I can't think of a player who's got worse under McKenna. So I think we can go in with a certain amount of hope and expectation that he will handle it this year. He may not get a volume of goals, a 20 goal a season Championship strike. Crikey, we'd be looking at £10 million plus then we look to sell him on. But I think he'll certainly do a job in our team and allow us to play like he did for the tail end of last season.
I think it's a very smart move for him as well to make, because he'd been coming through at Sheffield Wednesday when he was in the sort of the son of the legend, coming through there, not quite getting his chance in the first team. And then he took that strange move over to Belgium when they were part owned by the same owner as Leicester. So went to Belgium, came back to Leicester, and then all of a sudden you've gone from being a player at a Championship club who might have a chance of breaking through to a team that's up in Europe and doing well with no chance. And then it's just loaned out here, loaned out there. I think he had 1 or 2 years left on his contract at Leicester, where he's obviously earning a decent whack of money, and he could quite easily have just sat it out, waited till the end of the window, picked up another loan move. But if that had have gone like it did with Blackburn, where you're coming late into it, you're not getting a run in the team, that could be his, not career over, but his chance at the Championship over, and he's sort of having to drop down to a League One, League Two team and not a team playing like we do, I don't know, name your team here, earning a hell of a lot less money and just out of it like that. Where if it's, let's say for us, he's coming into a system that he knows, under a manager that he knows can improve him with a coaching staff that is going to get the best out of him. And I'm sure you hear like the deals for Jack Taylor in previously, where him and McKenna are in contact sort of 2 or 3 times a week for months on end. And I think that it's probably been the same with George Hirst. Him and McKenna have spoken lots and lots. He knows what he's coming into, and he's coming in to be a key player for a team here that's hopefully, and we all think it's going to be an upwardly mobile team. So this should be the move that ignites his career and puts him back in that trajectory that he was on previously.
I'm just going to dip into the comments here. Elliot Leader says, one more striker needed. Unpopular opinion, but I'd love John Jules back. If he can stay fit, he'd be great covered down the middle and in the wider roles. I think we're all probably in agreement with that. Although you have a slightly more unpopular opinion, Joe, which is shared with Philip Blundell. Makes me wonder if Big Fred is headed for the exit door. Can you see Freddie Ladapo potentially leaving Ipswich Town this summer?
I can do, yeah. I'm not sure. Like I say, you hear this talk that Charlton are in for him and Derby under Paul Hirst are in for him, and you think, well, you only hear those stories if there is an inkling or an indication that he may be available for transfer. And whilst I'm not saying we're going to be pushing him out the door, we seem to be in for Ellis Sims. Well, I'm pretty sure we were always going to sign George Hirst, and is it a case that we were going to sign Hirst and Sims as the sort of rotating 9, the one that plays 60 minutes, the other plays half an hour and works for there? But I just think it seemed so obvious at the end of the season what level Hirst had lifted us to in that number 9 role above Ladapo. Do we not need to find somebody who's maybe more on a similar level to Hirst or even better to try and lift that further? And like Freddie's been great for us. He's scored 21 goals last season. He's done his job. He stayed fit all season. But I think at 30, if you could pick up a little fee for him from League One and you can bring in somebody who's on a higher level for the Championship, I think we'd be looking to do it.
They're just difficult to find, aren't they, Craig? These strikers that are at that level that we can afford.
Yeah, that's right. And reference to John Jules there, it's excuse me, it's potentially going to have to be a player with potential that you're signing rather than anything approaching the finished product. And I think in reference to the John Jules comment there, yeah, if he can stay fit, and you would have thought that if it was a deal that we were going to do, then would it have been done already? Or is that a fail-safe fallback option should we not be able to get another option in? Because I think talking about the John Jules reference again is I would have thought if we do keep Ladapo and Hirst, then another striker will have to be. You're not going to get a third striker to play that single role, if you know what I mean. You're going to have, as Joe was referencing, the 60-30 split between 2 strikers, but then you're going to have to start getting a striker or an attacker with a bit more versatility in terms of being able to play like John Jules did. He can play the wide roles, he can play through the middle, so I wouldn't be surprised that if we take Ladapo or a Ladapo replacement, you will also be after another striker or attacker, who can play any of those maybe 2 or 3 positions in and around the top end of the pitch rather than a single striker.
I think it's forgotten sort of how talented John Jules is as well. So it's just his fitness is the only issue, isn't it? There, like when you like the under-21s that won the European Championship last week, he was in that squad, the same squad that these players are in a year or 2 ago. He won caps in the qualifying campaign for that tournament, and that you see the level of those players there. The forwards in that squad: Anthony Gordon, who went to Newcastle for 40 million, Morgan Gibbs-White, who went to Forest for a similar fee. Emile Smith-Rowe, Cole Palmer, who's playing at Man City pretty regularly, Noni Madueke, who's 20-odd million there, Balogun, who's gone to the US now, but has scored 20-odd goals in Ligue 1 for this season. And you think that is the company Tyrese John Jules was keeping. It is purely this injury that makes it a concern. But I totally agree with Craig. It's if that deal was going to be a number 1 priority, it would probably have happened by now. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's one we revisit.
Okay, so let's just dip into the comments here on Hirst. Let's wrap up George Hirst for now. I'm sure we'll jump back into the Hirst conversation before the end of the pod. But Paul Whitmore says, on the 87th birthday of a great Ipswich Town centre forward, we sign hopefully another good one. And he says, how close must Crawford have been to being selected for the 1962 World Cup? Now, I've pointed Paul in the direction of David Diamond's YouTube interview or podcast interview for Blue Monday. I think it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it, with Ray Crawford? Must give that a watch if you haven't already. I'm sure Paul's already seen it. HGH says one more striker in the building after Hirst, or is that it up front? I think we're all of the opinion that there'll be at least one more through the door. Norman Greenwald, happy Hirst has come. Is he a top-end championship striker? I think that remains to be seen, doesn't it, Craig?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and as sort of as Joe was talking about a Ladapo replacement, I can't imagine, even with our relative riches, we're going to be able to afford a nailed-on top championship striker. A top
Jamie
2,
Vardy.
3, 4. Yeah, top 2, 3, 4 championship striker. You'll be buying someone, I say, with potential. I would have thought, but there's no reason not to, as I said earlier, about trajectory and that, they're backing the right horse, aren't they, at the moment with George Hirst? There's no reason not to expect that he'll continue to improve. Whether he improves enough to become a top champ striker remains to be seen.
The best niche comment comes from Louis Hunt Cole, says, reckon Tommy Miller will sell him the Audi, or he's asking if Tommy Miller will sell him his Audi TT so he can go unrecognised in Suffolk. It's a great idea, Louis. Thanks for that one. Manolis.
To be fair, sorry, Mike. The level of detectivism. That's not a word, is it? Detection, private detectivism.
You're right, Craig.
Sorry. That was whizzing around our Telegram group was preposterous at times, wasn't it? There was people, looking at number plates and the where the number plate originated from in the country, and then looking at the place that he'd sourced his car from to see whether it linked up with the number plate. My goodness me. If you're not looking at that and being a little bit scared about your browsing history and what have you, then I don't know when you will be.
Was it all a little bit much, do you think, Joe, or is it all just good fun?
I think it depends on how it was seen, because the picture of Hirst walking into the Salt House, we know because it was a guy on the Telegram who was walking home from work and just happened to be there while Hirst and his partner were walking and quickly grabbed a photo. I think that's a bit different to if people were like actively going around hunting him down, which I don't think was the case, because ultimately the person who spotted his car at Portman Road is presumably sitting in that off at the council office overlooking the car park there and saw him there, and then I don't know, then it's up at the Nuffield, up at Ufford Park when it's on there. I did mention, like, some people were talking about it being mad, but Ipswich is quite a small place, and there's not that many places to go, and people go to these places naturally, if that makes sense. Like, I can't imagine people were literally sitting there like outside the Salt House with 100 people there waiting to stalk him and find him. Then
I suppose it's nice that we have an engaged fan base and players that are recognised now around the county by maybe even by casual Ipswich fans, whereas it wasn't that long ago where they could probably just walk around pretty much invisible.
I'm sure he's not going to be harassed any more than any other Ipswich player is now he's signed. But it was
no
exciting.
More than any other. And
there was obviously a sort of, for whatever reason, the press weren't really reporting on the imminent status of the transfer. I assume the club had asked them not to because there was potentially some risk in the deal or one of those things. So the press play ball with the club as they sometimes need to do. So it was, I think, people not needing to, but there was that excitement about it. So, he's here, we've seen him. Where does it go from there? But it was just, I'd say, it was parts of it were quite funny, I thought. But like I say, if people were genuinely going out and hunting him down, there's probably a little bit too much.
If you're driving around the roads of Suffolk in a £120,000 Mercedes, you're going to be spotted, aren't you?
Yeah, as I've found to my detriment. Manolis says, really great signing, good agent fee. I like the way these signings are going. We're looking at the best players that fit the system rather than splashing money about. It certainly seems that way. Panic hasn't set in yet. Philip Blundell says Hirst will improve a lot under McKenna. Maybe by January, other clubs will show interest. I think this deal they'll be signing will be hopefully strong enough, and he'd have to be moving up to the Premier League, wouldn't he, for someone to be able to sign him off us? And
having signed a 4-year deal, that's tied everyone in for at least 1 or 2 seasons. You would have thought.
Well, we are in that position now, at least, though, because the problem was when we were in League One that you weren't able to sell your players for a decent amount. So when there was talk of who would you sell in the summer, and last year, and there's a bit of interest in Wes Burns, it's like, well, Wes Burns to us is probably worth £5 million at that point, but nobody's going to pay that for him because he was a 28-year-old League One player. But now we're in a championship. There is that chance that if a player does well, that if Hirst scores 18 goals before January, that somebody might want to come and pay a load of money for him. And if that happens, then you just have to get as good a deal as you can and say thank you and move on to the next one. But now we're in the championship, things can really start happening, can't they? And it's now, I think it's 5 players now, isn't it, that we've signed in that sort of £1 to £1.5 million range with Leif Davis, Nathan Broadhead, Harry Clark, Jack Taylor, and George Hirst. It's all 5 of them now, isn't it? And that's obviously the area of the market we're looking at. And yeah, I'm sure we'll go more than that at times, but they're the sort of players which we never did under Evans, where, like I say, we sold Tyrone Mings, we bought him for 10,000, sold him for 8 million, and then rather than sign someone for 2 million, we wanted to sign someone for 200,000 and try and repeat the trick where you needed to up that level of investment so that you are buying players that can sell for a bigger cost afterwards.
Yeah, higher ceilings, haven't they? And none of them have gone down. None of them are going down in value, are they?
No, definitely not. Exciting times ahead. So hopefully our next signing will be a left-sided defender, Craig. Apparently young Arsenal defender Austin Trusty is on our list. He impressed at Birmingham last season. Looks like he could be a real coup.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, from the Telegram group, it appears that we, as you would have thought, we're not going to be the only club that's interested. And I believe he played for Arsenal in their pre-season game today. So I don't think anything's particularly imminent in that respect. But yeah, it's a name. And again, in reference to what Joe was saying there about age group and potential, you'd think that may be a deal that's probably going to be above the 1.5 million that we spent on the other guys. But in terms of age range and potential, it's another one that's exactly there. But you're talking about English players being a premium. Left-footed centre halves are also got a premium on their price as well.
Indeed, they have. Luke Penning wants to know your thoughts as well, Joe. Young with potential, or would you rather someone experienced like Cathcart come in?
Young with potential for me. I think whilst we haven't got mega experience in the side, we obviously signed Richard Keogh as an experienced player last season. But what we actually got out of him on the pitch, it wasn't worth having him here, was it? What did he start? 4 or 5 league games against probably teams at the bottom of the league effectively. We could have survived without him, and I'm sure he had a positive influence in the dressing room and all that side of it there. But I don't think we really need to use a squad place up on someone like that. For me, I think unless you're going to do a bit of trading where you're going to sign this young left-sided player because we need a left-sided player to compete with Burgess, you're then going to sell Edmondson and then you bring in the experienced player. I could see that, but I wouldn't want that 4th player to be Cathcart, basically, because we then don't really solve the problem we've got on that left side of the defence. We just means we've either got Burgess here or somebody playing on the wrong side.
Okay. One man we have got through the door that isn't Hirst isn't Hirst or Taylor, sorry, is the young Manchester City goalkeeper Kieran Slicker. Craig, only 20 years old, presumably a goalkeeper who will suit our style with that Man City background. Do you expect him to be back up for Walton this season? Could you see Hladky going out, or do you think he is that sort of senior junior goalkeeper, if that makes sense, the third choice?
Yeah, I think he's probably more likely to be Nick Hayes' replacement in the squad rather than Hladky's, because I don't think we'll put ourselves in a position whereby should Walton break his finger at the Stadium of Light at the beginning of August, that we're left with a 20-year-old goalkeeper to see us through the rest of the season. I think he's pretty much going to come in to act as that third choice keeper to keep up with the warm-ups and just in and around the squad. I think Stuart Watson said it, didn't he, in East Anglian, that Nick Hayes will probably go out on loan somewhere. Because, I think from Hladky's perspective, I don't think he's rocking the boat in any respect. He's not looking to leave. He's got another year on his contract. So I'd imagine in the whole scheme of things, there are worse places to be playing your football, or at least training football, than Suffolk on a nice summer's day like today. But I think Hladky will probably see out this year, and then he'll go, and then they'll put their heads together to work out what they get in terms of a backup. Because it's a difficult sell, isn't it, really, to come in back up to a nailed-on first-choice goalkeeper. But then we're saying about Hirst doing well this year. If Walton does well this year, who knows what will happen to him? But no, I think he'll come in as the third choice.
And that's 3 summer signings by my account and counting. And next week we'll be releasing my top 10 Ipswich summer signings from the past decade on our YouTube channel. So please keep an eye out for that one. Make sure you, smash that like button on YouTube. Do that not only for this show tonight, but ring that bell. And Joe, you had your first go at a solo video in the form of that away kit video. I thought you did a fantastic job. Excellent props again, just like Rich. How much did you enjoy doing that, and how well has it been received?
I think most people disagreed with some parts of it, but it's always the case in rank. Because I sort of tried to not worry too much, because the problem with the away, like with the home kits, it's quite easy to rank them because you can generally tell what's a good home kit, what's a bad one, and they're all blue.
You're saying Rich had a really easy job compared to you.
Rich had a very easy job. Where on the away kits, because they're so different and conflicting styles, one person might love it and one person might hate it. And there's a certain kit that was in the number 2 position that was a bit Marmite with the fan base, but I won't reveal it now. So everyone make sure they go out and watch that video, and make sure I get more views on it than Rich did for his video.
Wonderful. And Craig, have you got any of these short form content videos up your sleeve, do you think, between now and the start of the season?
I haven't
victories, best players of the early 90s.
5 celebrations.
That ain't short form. That's a long read equivalent, I think you'll find. Yeah, very possibly. Keep your eyes peeled. There might be something closer to the end of August, possibly. But yeah, so I think it's just something else we're trying out, isn't it? These while it's relatively quiet and we can't have these type of conversations all the time, it's just nice to keep people interested, I think.
Excellent. And you were very much an interested party up in Needham. It was last Friday, wasn't it, Joe, for the Maidenhead friendly? What did you learn down at Bloomfields?
That the curry a decent curry house. So went there and had a nice pre-match meal with some of the Telegram guys in the group, and then wandered over. And I do
Prince Harry's eaten in that curry house before, I believe.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I do like Needham as a football venue, because it's like, I was lucky that Gary was driving and he managed to pick me up and give me a lift there. But normally it's one where you can get the train to. You walk straight out of the train station. You've got 2 nice pubs through the back, and it's a really nice setting to watch a game of football. Good supporters bar in there as well. So nice setting up there. I think the sort of main problem we found was the pitch was really dry there. The grass was quite long. The pitch was really dry, and we struggled to get anything going on that pitch. So it sort of became more of a fitness exercise than a friendly. We luckily we got the 2 goals. We did actually win the game, but it wasn't really one you could take much from. I guess probably the most interesting thing was, well, second most interesting thing. First most interesting thing was that we saw Timmy Mallet, and he's a Maidenhead fan, and he rode his bike past us as we were going into the ground. And then the other actual thing that people will probably care about is the role that Leif Davis was playing in here, which sounded very similar to the role he played at Felix in the first game, where he was effectively stepping up from left back, but moving across into a midfield role. And then from that role, Jack Taylor was then pushing forward. So it's interesting. And I'm sure you could look at the sort of some of the videos when you watch of like Arsenal's tactics for last season, or Man City, where they sit with like a free man defence across the back with 2 in midfield and then 5 in front of it. And Leif Davis was sitting more as that second midfielder, plus also pushing up into a number 10 position at times.
Zinchenko role?
Yeah, I was calling him Leif Zinchenko at times. And when you look at the signings we've made, I do think that is maybe something we're going to be looking to do a bit more of there. So that's definitely one to watch. And I also think that Leif Davis just seems to have come back, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden you've realised he is just our best player by a distance, and you could put him anywhere on the pitch and he's going to be our best player. He just looks that good and a level above anyone. Maybe sort of Nathan Broadhead may push him on that, but he does just look a level above anyone. So it's almost like, how do we let him run the game? And I think that's probably what we're doing, is a good way to do it. And like I say, there's a couple of other comments about the pitch. Colin talking about the bumpy pitch, yeah, and that was a problem. But Leif Davis is the one to watch, and I think he is going to be monster player for us this season.
Let's hope so. Can't see any reason why not. Before we jump full time into the Q&A section, Craig, we must talk about that viral social clip that the club released today, which shows the boys playing football cricket. I believe the term people use is wholesome content. Craig, you're not there for the wholesomeness, are you? You're here to be our Blue Mondays umpire. Did Mr. Grant make the right decision?
Well, here's that. We'll just take it back a little bit. Sonny Aluko, what a delivery! He's slung that. He's like Lassif
Malinga
slinging the ball in. He must have got a little bit of a waist swing on it, because Massimo Longo swinging from the hip. God knows how he missed like a nailed on half volley. He got a big thick edge on it. I don't think there's any disputing the fact he got an edge on it. And from first glance, I thought it was pretty much a straightforward catch. Now, obviously, Lee Grant's gone to consult his. He was umpiring from point, so he's gone to consult his square leg umpire for some reason, and they came to the conclusion that the ball had been grounded before he got to it. I would disregard I would disregard this footage here, because, as everyone who watches cricket knows, the foreshortening of long lens cameras when it comes to picking up catches can be dismissed pretty much. You know, there's angles, there's bumps in the grass, etc. I thought it was a good catch. I'm going to put my neck out and say it was a good catch. I will not be questioning the trustworthiness of
Harry Clark.
And it's always nice to see an Aussie batsman dismissed, isn't it?
Yeah, I noticed he didn't walk.
No, absolutely no chance. Do you think Clark would have shown him off? What's the expression? Sorry, I've failed myself there.
What did Ollie Robinson do to David Warner?
Gave him a send off.
Send him off. Send off.
Gave him a send off. Yeah.
Harry Clark does seem like the type to give somebody a send off, doesn't he?
Very much. I think he's very much in the Andre Nell, Merv Hughes school of cricketers, shall we say? Yeah, he wouldn't be holding back, I don't think. But
so, Craig,
no, as you say,
I'm going to indulge you here as it's the Ashes. I want you to pick out some players from the current team. Just pick 5 who you think would be excellent cricketers in a certain position. Like, who's your spinner, who's your pace bowler or seam bowler, and I want to know who's your Ben Stokes batsman, who's the all-rounder.
I just put one thing in as well, Craig. I think Christian Walton was a good cricketer down in Devon, as a lot of those players.
I'd have him down as an opening batsman, left-hander.
And we've also had a comment in the comments tonight from Lee Bayliss saying that he knows Kieran Slicker, and that Slicks, as his nickname, is a good cricketer as well.
Ah, fantastic!
Nice lad, and not bad at cricket too.
There you go.
Excellent. So maybe he'd be our.
There's been a few, isn't there? I think. Yeah, Mickey Stockwell was obviously a good cricketer, wasn't he, back in the day? Roy McDonough, I know, used to play for Abberton in and around Colchester. I'd Walton down as more of a Stuart Broad type seamer myself. I think he's a bit, got the levers, as the coaches say, for that. Who else we got? Are there? I'd have Lawongo or Morsey could be your nuggety little Alan Lamb type middle order batsman, couldn't they? All cuts and pulls. I don't know really else. We need a as you say, need a spinner, but you need either a mystery spinner or a left arm spinner really. What do you think, Leif Davis might be your Phil Tufnell type left arm darter.
Yeah, I think Leif Davis would have a sort of bit craft in there, wouldn't he? And maybe even Cameron Humphreys might be a decent little cricketer as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
George Hirst, you could see as sort of the Jimmy Anderson to Christian Walton, Stuart Broad as well.
So one to think about, Craig. Rich has said, can't believe we descended into cricket chat. Conversations will be had. Indeed, there'll be plenty of these conversations about Ipswich Town cricketers over in the Telegram. Please join us for that. I'm going to dip back into these questions that aren't out of my brain, maybe to try and save this podcast. Philip Blundell, I think you were chatting about it earlier, Joe. Will Leif Davis occupy the left midfield role this season? Could you see us changing formation?
Well, I think it is. I think we are going to be looking for this sort of 3-2 role as a sort of on-the-ball setup, and maybe I'll try and find some videos of that have been put out to tweet on there that people can have a look at. But it does seem like football goes in phases, doesn't it? And the new phase of the big clubs is effectively a 3-2-5 when they attack. So your defence spreads across the whole pitch. 2 sit in front and then 5 sit in each zone across the pitch. And I think the way McKenna is, and at times we were doing this last year with the sort of 5 forwards, but it's just, do we want Davis more sort of central as opposed to just out wide crossing in? I don't know. It's difficult, but I think it's going to be, what we can understand, it's going to be very fluid. Maybe when Davis goes all the way up the left-hand side of the pitch, Jack Taylor's the one that sits in with Sam Morsey, and Nathan Broadhead shifts across into the middle. But I do think that is sort of going to be the pattern of play we work with. It's just going to be very, very fluid.
I think that's one of the benefits of having, as you referenced Taylor there, Joe, is having him in at this point of pre-season. If we are looking to play this way, is getting him fully versed in what we will need from him should Davis end up 10, 20 yards further up the pitch than him.
David Hughes says, what's left to go for you guys? For me, we need a left-sided centre-back and a forward who can cover all 4 front positions, and that's it for me. Do you think 2 signings would be enough, Joe?
I think it'll be a bit more than that. I think we need everyone agrees we need this left-sided centre-back, don't they? And I think that, the utility forward as well across there. But I also think, and we've been linked a lot with Raksaki from Charlton, Crystal Palace, from Crystal Palace, who was at Charlton last year. But maybe you want him as the sort of competitor to Wes Burns on the right rather than Caden Jackson potentially. So there's an element of that there. So I think you do there. And then I think there's always an option to upgrade players in the squad as well as that. Do you want to drop out Lee Evans and try and get a central midfielder who's maybe more in this new fluid style that we've got? Maybe you want to, as we spoke about earlier, another striker that will go above Ladapo and then let Ladapo go. But I think it is, the 3 for me is a right-sided forward, left-sided centre-back, and a utility forward. And then after that, it's sort of 1 in, 1 out.
Would you go along with that, Craig?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty much in agreement about the left-sided centre half. As I say earlier, though, that they'll come at a premium because everyone wants them, and it allows. Again, Joe's referencing YouTube videos, and there's plenty out there that also refer to left-sided centre halves and how they open up pitches and allow teams like us to play the way we want to play. But yeah, I still think that we'll be after a centre forward, regardless if the Dapper goes or not, because we will still be short should one of those 2 get injured.
There's a comment in there as well from Zoroark about Raksaki not being moved on yet. I do think sort of the talk that you hear is that it's one that's probably going to happen late in the window, but we're sort of waiting for him. I know Michael Elise got injured in the under 21s, and Zaha has he actually left yet? I don't know.
Well, he's essentially a free agent that might re-sign at the moment.
So
he's injured as well.
So Raksaki will be out there somewhere, and maybe we pick him up at the end of the window. But I think that'd be a sort of cherry on top sign if we can get him.
Charlie D, with all the changes that are likely to still happen, it kind of makes Austria a little stranger, maybe at the wrong time. I don't think there's much choices there, really, gents.
No, this is the time for the pre-season tour. And whilst there are still changes to happen, realistically, if you're talking a 25-man, realistically, you've got a 26-man squad, haven't you? Because you're going to have 25 and probably Cameron Humphreys on there. 22 of them are already here, aren't they? 21, 22 of the 26-man squad are already here. It's not like the pre-season 2 seasons ago where we started pre-season, you had about 12 players here for the start of pre-season, and that included Brett McGavin, Armando Dobra, Corian Darba, Toto Enciala, players that weren't sort of seen to be part of it. We're in a position where the squad is there, and it's just players, the one coming in here and there just to tweak things. And obviously Hirst isn't there, but he knows where we are with it. So no, I think we're in a good position.
Okay, Promotion Given says that American Arsenal defender is the number 1 target now. After that, I wouldn't be gutted if we were done for the window. Maybe loan in a young Premier League striker. I think we've already covered that, haven't we? That Joe thinks that there's going to be more than 2. I'd probably be happy with 2. Ashley Anson, this is a change of pace. What are the views on the new membership scheme? We'll start with you, Craig, on on that one. That's the £40 to be a Super Blues member, and being a season ticket holder doesn't really do much for you when it comes to getting away tickets, does it? It all comes down to if you're a Super Blues member and how many points you've got from previous season.
Yeah, you're right, Mikey. It's basically now, if you're a season ticket holder, thank you very much. You've reserved your seat for all the home games this season. That's your season ticket privilege. And now everyone starts from a blank sheet of paper from a membership perspective, for a priority perspective. Other than if you went to away games last year, which I suppose from that respect is entirely acceptable, because you want people who are more regular followers of away games to have the first choice, because it's what they do, and fair play to them. So I think you're always going to upset somebody at some point by doing it a certain way, aren't you? You're never going to please everybody, because people always see the downsides if they're being disadvantaged by it. I think what we probably could have done with, excuse me, is probably a Mark Ashton interview to go alongside it, rather than a simple press release with, this is the information, decipher it how you will. I don't think it would have gone amiss just a 5-10 minute interview just to explain why we've done it this way, and just to clarify and try and appease as many people as I can. But I've got no qualms with it personally. I've got a season ticket, so be it. That's my seat for the season. I went to X amount of away games last year, so therefore I'll be somewhere in the league table when it comes to getting priority for away matches. Well, that's what it is. If somebody went to 23 away matches last year, they deserve to go to 23 away matches, or have first dibs on 23 away matches this year as well. I see it.
Absolutely. And Joe? Yes, it doesn't really affect you, does it, as the Mr. Corporate Hospitality?
Yeah, I still need to be on the away ticket side. They seem to have sort of toned that down a bit. The only things I would say, I think £40 is a little bit too expensive for it, just to be a member, just to be able to buy tickets. I think that price could be put in half, and it would still be expensive for what it is. Really, it's £40 a lot of money just to be able to buy tickets to away games. Because that's what it is, isn't it? You're not going to be able to potentially get tickets to nearly any games without it.
But the capitalist argument which Benjamin Bloom would make is we were crying out for a well-functioning football club that invested in players, and these are the types of things that happen at those clubs, isn't it?
Yeah, no, and I do get it. I understand it, and I will pay it myself. So I'm it's hard for me to sort of make too much of a moral standpoint against it when I go out and pay it myself, like about changing kits every season when I go and buy them all. Anyway, but like I said, I just think £40 a bit too much, and I think the 1 year period at the moment when they say it's just going to end is probably too short a period. I think that maybe should become a sort of 2 year rolling period, and rather than it be just for the season, it sort of rolls with it. So it is in the last sort of 2 calendar years. How many you've got? I know friends who had done it previously at Tottenham, where it was in the sort of the last 3 years from the date, and your points dropped off, and they knew how many were at each level, and they could do it from there. And I'm sure at some point ours will get to that stage. At the moment, it's a bit. It's new. Things will change with it, but I think we can all agree last year the sort of gold card argument didn't really work, did it? It was because I think there was something like 7,000 gold cards by the end of the season as people just bought them.
People would just buy them to go to Cambridge or whatever, weren't they?
Yeah, and
which is probably the reason why they don't want it to be cheap again, because people do the same thing again this year, won't it? By virtue of being 40 quid. You're hopefully stopping people from paying 20 quid just to get priority to buy a ticket at Cambridge.
Yeah, and it wasn't really fair on non-season ticket holders, because, like I say, if you're somebody that lives abroad, so not lives abroad, but lives away somewhere else in the country, somewhere like the Northwest, for example, or the Southwest, Southeast, wherever, where there's grounds around it, and you can't afford or be able to come back to Portman Road every other week, and you do commit to those away games, you should be able to find a way to somebody who's just a season ticket holder that maybe wants to go to one away game a season if you're committing to 7 or 8. Because whilst the season ticket's a big commitment and those fans are the key fans for the club, ultimately they get their reward by having a seat significantly cheaper than what that could be sold for on the day. And when you look at the cost of the early birds and the renewal price less than the early birds, the season tickets are pretty good value, aren't they, really?
Yeah. Well, they certainly were last season, let's put it that way. A little bit of news as we've been on air. Rich Woodward broke that Kane Vincent-Young to Wycombe Wanderers has been confirmed. Happy that he's found himself a decent club in League One, Craig, and could be a real asset if he can keep himself fit down at Adams Park.
Yeah. Very happy. He's a League One player, isn't he? There were rumours about him potentially going back to Colchester, which I'd have thought is a step too low for him. And also with a manager looking to play a certain way, which he should fit in nicely with. It's not as if he's going to play Ainsworth's Wycombe. He's going to play for Matt Bloomfield's Wycombe. And is that Scott Mitchell went there, didn't he? He recently became head of recruitment or whatever the role is there. So that's probably a link there somewhere as well, which may have helped get it over the line.
Indeed. Joe, what your thoughts on Vincent-Young? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good. I think he deserves a decent League One club, and I think Wycombe are that. They're a side that would probably expect to be up in the top half of the table, fighting for the playoffs. Obviously, a lot depends on what Matt Bloomfield can get done there, because I know it's not his first managerial role, but he went in at Colts, had a very short spell there, and then has gone to Wycombe, and it'll be interesting to see what he does. There's obviously the strong Ipswich connection there, like you say, with Scott Mitchell going in as head of recruitment. So it doesn't surprise me that there's players from this side going over there. So no, I think he'll do well there. Just hope he can have a good run in the team. I think he was fit most of last season, wasn't he? So hopefully he can have that as well.
Michael Warner asks, how do you think our fullback pairing of Clark and JD will do in the Championship? Presumably just means at right back, Craig.
I don't think we'll see quite as much of Donatian as we may have this year. I think he'll now move into more of a backup rather than a semi-regular replacement. I think Clark will be the nailed-on starter, and then Donatian will fill in whereas needed. But again, as we were talking about potential, they'll be hoping that Clark, who's also played for Stoke, hasn't he, in the Championship, and did relatively well for half a season, I believe. But he'll be another one that will be looking to grow with us and improve with us. I'd be more concerned about the left-hand side. The left-hand side, to be honest, in terms of Davis and Greg Lee, what they do with Greg Lee, because as has been spoken about elsewhere and we discussed on the group, and we were talking about versatility earlier. He's a guy that can play one position, isn't he? One position only, really.
Do you get Cam Humphreys playing that role?
Could happen. You've spoken about it before. He's definitely fit enough. He's got the technique, but it's just whether he's going to get that time on the training pitch playing in that position.
I just think though, when you look at Davis, the player most like him in the squad with regards to sort of the technical side on the ball, the engine, the sort of competitiveness is Cameron Humphreys. But we'll see.
We will see. Blagger 101. Whilst news of Hirst signing is excellent news, in order to be successful, Town need another striker. My first choice would be Tom Cannon of Everton. Are there any other names out there that you're interested in, Craig? I know Surridge at Nottingham Forest is one that's been, I don't want to say heavily linked, but he's been linked.
Yeah, I think I read a few days ago, maybe over the weekend, that Sunderland were sniffing around Cannon, I think, to improve their firepower. So yeah, as you say, the names that have been bandied around, wouldn't say no to any of them. Surridge would be, as Joe was saying, probably a step up on Hirst, and therefore allow the Dapper to move on. He'd be the type of signing that would be a level above Hirst, as we're talking about continually improving and raising the ceiling.
Rob Holmes is touting Josh Madger on a free, Joe.
I haven't seen a lot of him since Sunderland Till I Die, where he sort of played a strange role in that series, didn't he? Was it Bordeaux? Was it somewhere out there?
Oh yeah,
to France. Yeah. But he's looked a really good player at that stage. But it's hard to judge, isn't it? But there's obviously good players out there. Tom Cannon's a good player, and we seem to be sort of grouped in with sort of like Coventry, Sunderland, especially that sort of level.
But you would have thought teams like Sunderland are also after a striker, aren't they? You know, they're in probably more desperate need of one than we are as of today.
Yeah, we'll see, but it's less desperation now, isn't it? We have that centre forward through the door. I feel relatively confident going up to Sunderland. We're not quite where we perhaps need to be, but now we've got that striker. We've kind of got good players in every position, haven't we? With backup as well. Flim Flam, this was a nice comment from him early on. Is it true that David Diamond's first car was an Austin Trusty? Quite possibly. David Bergin, big fan of the show. He became a granddad for the first time last week. So congratulations to you, David. And I'm sure you'll be able to bring your grandchild across to England to watch your beloved Ipswich at some point over the next
Hopefully
few years.
already got the Ipswich Town onesie and bib and booties and all that malarkey. There's plenty there, I think, available.
Lovely.
Or Blue Monday. Sorry, not ITFC one. I'm sure there's a Blue Monday onesie, isn't there? Or we can fashion a neckerchief into a onesie.
I'm certain there is. Yeah, just scratching for the the right.
Oh yes,
here we are. Yeah, I can't see a onesie on here, but I'm sure it is available on our Blue Monday merch site. Look on our website or on our Twitter page for more details. Please hit like if you haven't already. Keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel because, like I said, my top 10 signings is probably going to be dropping over the next few days. There's going to be more of that type of thing, and then there's going to be more reactions to the proper friendly games. Hopefully, we'll get to watch those on Town TV. Joe, heard anything about that?
The only thing I've heard is that the friendlies in Austria, not the ones we played this weekend, but when we play the tournament in Innsbruck against Werder Bremen and Red Bull Leipzig, those games will be on Town TV. So they're best part of 2 weeks away, are they? So 29th of July, I think they are, or 28th maybe. But other than that, no, I haven't heard anything.
Okay, so Craig, any final words or anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Plugging? No. Just say, enjoy the rest of your summer, everybody. If we don't chat anytime soon,
try not to harass any more transfer targets. How about that?
Yeah,
maybe the harassment was what got it over the line. So we don't know, do we?
Excellent. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Craig. Thanks Joe, and good night.